awesome. And yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead, Chris.
No, I'm the weaker half of the political matrix, but I'm I'm here and I'm in the building. I watch Fuzz, I watch Marcus. I'm just listening because they know their shit. But as he said, I look at it. I do know a little bit. With that being said, you can see the parallel. You can see the parallels between what is written, prophesied, and what you see in front of you every day. Fuzz, I toss it to you, man. Go ahead.
So, Chris, if you're the weaker half of the political matrix, I'm the weaker half of Hebrew apologetics. So I have been studying the Bible for about 7 months now, all with Marcus's help over here. And it's been quite a roller coaster of a ride. About 1 to 2 years ago, I went from commenting on Franco's from Frank Analysis, his political show, appearing on panels here or there, and all of a sudden, when me and Marcus first interacted, was there, and we actually bumped heads and had differing views on stuff, and life happened, and here I am co-hosting a show with him every week on Bible subjects. So yeah, that's my intro.
Right on. It's pretty good intros. Sounds like a plane is coming in. I don't know where that's coming.
Yeah, that's my.
All good. No, don't worry about it. There's all kinds of sounds. I'm in Chicago. You don't know what you're gonna hear either. So you're all good. Yeah.
It's all like right. He was right above the house for a moment. I mean, you're gonna hear choppers and stuff too. I call them ghetto birds.
Yeah, they're there, aren't they? Shit. All right. Well, honestly, tonight we don't have. I'm doomless. There's no Doom. Sebs wasn't able to make it, but she's here in spirit. So hopefully, I don't know. Like I said, I kind of go all over the place. She's actually sort of like anchor. So again, I go all over the place. So reel it in if you need to. But I'm excited to just kind of. Well, I mean, it could be quite horrifying, but I'm excited as far as I see a lot of the parallels too. The more I learn, just because I'll be honest, when I was younger, like growing up into quote different religions, whatever you want to call Ashkenazi Judaism, I never really felt at home with either. I kind of was just like, okay, because I just would always see parallels between the two, and I just thought it was a lot of it just seemed odd to me. But as I've gotten older, and definitely as of recently, reading more just like the Bible in terms of how with Revelations and how the parallels of today, specifically with what's happening in Ukraine, I really wanted to kind of just have this conversation. And then hopefully there will be time to just kind of go into this idea of like frequencies, especially in the United States, in cities like Chicago, just because that's something, been here off and on for the last 12 years, LA, Detroit, New York, plenty of other places. So hopefully we'll see where we go. But I kind of wanted, I don't know, Marcus, what do you, it's kind of funny because I'm hosting the show, but where should we start actually?
I feel like one of the best places to start, if you want to start talking about prophecy, the first thing you should do is you should try to get a grasp of what's going on now with the comparisons, and then try to figure out, because I don't know, I kind of like work backwards a lot of times from stuff. And so one of the things which I like to go into, Fuzz, can you give me what 2 Ezra 6 and 9?
Okay.
So
I
like to go to
I already busted out the Apocrypha.
You knew where I was going. Well, I like because here's one thing. One thing I like to dispel a couple of things also. And shout out to everybody in the chat.
Yeah, I'm also terrible.
I noticed Ed said, well, he knows Christianity. Well, this is the difference. Christianity is a lot of dogma that's been taught. I'm going to teach Bible here. So what and when me and Fuzz, well, we both recognize ourselves as Hebrew Israelites. What we try to do is we try to actually go into what the scripture is saying and try to look at it in its most original text that we can. So some of this stuff is going to be written in Greek, some of it is written in Aramaic, and so we try to find what it said in the oldest text and go off of that verifiable text. I'll give you a perfect example. When it says God is a Germanic understanding. What the actual translation, a better translation would be powers or a power. In the Greek, there are two words for God. You have theon and theos. And so it references many people in the Bible. There's many theos, but there's only one theon. And so a lot of people don't get the difference sometimes in context because they don't understand the difference in that. And I mean, it's the same, like I'll give you another one. For instance, the word world. World has three different words for world in Greek. You have eon, you have oikomene, you have cosmos. And all three of those things mean something different. So you have to be able to judge the context of what it's saying in this period. And also it goes into why almost every Christian knows John 3:16, but don't know John 3:14, John 3:1, John 3:17, because they are doing what we call picking out a text and it's being used for doctrine. So yeah, Fuzz, I guess you can go ahead with what was it, second Esdras 6 and 9?
Yeah. So for context, this is the prophet Ezra. Esdras is the Greek name of Ezra, and he's having a conversation with the angel Uriel.
Oh yeah, I forgot one other thing to add. A lot of Christians they read from versions of the Bible where there's only 66 books.
I was gonna say it's good to probably explain the Apocrypha like real quick
Yes.
for those who may not.
This right here is my Bible. As you guys can see, it's all kind of paper sticking out. It's a lot of studying. What I'll show you is you go right here to Malachi. Malachi is the last book of the first Testament. As you can see there, Apocrypha is right there in my Bible. So the 1611 version of the King James Bible has it in there. The Septuagint has it in there. It makes a difference which comparative text that you're reading from, whether it's like the Vulgate, Latin. I'm getting a different text is tongue-tied, but there are Latin ones, there are Greek ones. It makes a difference what your Bible's translated from to add to the context. So we go back to that one because that's before they took these 14 books out of the Bible. But this is from the Apocrypha, from that section there. So, sorry, go ahead, Fuss.
So this is the angel Uriel having a conversation with Esdras, and he's essentially asking for what's going to happen at the end. And so this is the Apocrypha, the book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 6, and I'm going to start at verse 7 for context. Okay. Then answered I and said, what shall be the parting asunder of the times? Or when shall be the end of the first, and the beginning of it that followeth? And he said unto me, from Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth.
Okay, so the reason why I had him read that is so that we can understand. And when it's in the end of the world, it doesn't mean literally the world is going to be over. When you look at that, it does not use, like that's why I was saying, understanding the context of what it's saying when it's saying world, what that means. In this context, it doesn't use oikomene, which would mean the whole entire planet. What it uses is aeon, the end of the age. So at the end of an age, you have a different passing and a changing. Now, does that mean that there will not be some destruction to certain parts of the earth? That doesn't mean that, but because the earth is going to continue on.
Civilization and society is not going to just abruptly come to an end from some, crazy event.
Right.
Yeah, we're not going to be sitting there. Like, one thing we dispel is we don't have the belief of sitting in some hell where your skin is burning off and coming back over and over and over, and or everyone else goes and floats in sky mansions. That's not how we understand it at all, because it literally says heaven is under earth, the judgment is under the heavens. So your judgment, whatever you go through, and it's going to be dealt with here on earth. And that goes into another category also, but go ahead, Fuzz.
Okay.
Let me also actually bring out a precept really quick. I just finished reading this chapter. And so this is the book of Matthew, chapter 5 and verse 18. And this is the mouth of Christ, or Hamashiach Yahushai, who the world calls Jesus Christ, saying, "For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled." And what that's saying is, since what was just read in Second Esdras has yet to be fulfilled, that means there's still prophecies that have yet to come to pass.
Well, I can give you another one, because a lot of Christians will say the Old Testament's over with, it's done with.
Yeah.
Fuzz, go to Numbers. Numbers, what is it, 24 and 17? Numbers is, what is it, the third book of the Bible. This is literally in the Torah. So I'm going to show a prophecy, which is literally in the Torah, which has not come to pass, which shows you that there are still plenty of prophecies in the Old Testament that still have to come to pass. Because even in Genesis 49, it talks about in the end days. So go on ahead, Fuzz.
This is 24 and what was it?
17.
Okay. So this is the book of Numbers, chapter 24 and verse 17. "I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel, and shall smite the corners of Moab, and destroy all the children of Sheth."
And so what that's referring to is, that's literally talking about when the Messiah comes back, he's going to destroy a nation. He's going to attack that nation directly. And so it's not, granted, a lot of people think that it's this or that, but there's more scriptures who break down what that's talking about and what nation that's talking about. But if people are wondering, that's not Mystery Babylon. Moab is not Mystery Babylon.
Okay.
So I know you probably have some questions.
I do. I almost don't know where to start. And also, again, just as a side note with the chat asking questions, I'll try. I might at the end. I'm a horrible host, really, very selfish host. I'm not great at looking at the chat. I'm like, people don't like to talk about this side of really quick, Ed. People don't like to talk about that side of Jesus. What side of Jesus?
Well, he's talking about the part when he's flipping tables. Not only did he flip tables, me and Chris were talking about this earlier. Like, he literally made a whip. Like, he sat there and he's looking at the money changers in the church, and he literally braided up a whip and went in and started kicking over tables and whipping people.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's like a blank slate here. You're just like, because I think really to like understand a lot of this in terms of how the parallels and even just the actual historical context of it, you kind of have to, if you can, I'm not telling you guys this, but just the audience, have to wipe your brain clean of pretty much the framing of
Christianity.
That comment makes me want to read Isaiah 63.
Go for it.
I know. Well, I can explain that one. Plutonian podcast as the children of Seth. Children of Seth, that means after you had Cain and Abel, the blessing got passed on to Seth. And then eventually keeps going down and down and down and down. So that's just not a misnomer, but that's just a way of naming. That's when the people who will receive that final judgment are being taken out, no matter what tribe or stock they're from. That's when that's going to happen. So the children of Sheth, we're all children of Sheth, no matter if you are from Israel, if you're from Cush, if you're from, your Ham, your Japhetic, your Shemitic, we're all from Sheth or Seth.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
So actually, there is a question I have, and I am just gonna cut a little bit. I'm gonna go a little bit to the side
Sure.
because at this point, I don't even think it's right. For I am gonna speak specifically about Ashkenazi Jews. Sorry, I've got to go there.
No, sure.
But I
If
have
you have
to.
questions, please ask.
I
Yes.
do. Because I feel like it's not even right at this point. If you actually just look at the Bible in terms of the history and like that time period and who the Jews being kicked out or sent in exile, it just I mean I know this is like not news to you guys, but for anyone out there who's like thinks that like actual like Ashkenazi Jewish people have roots in Israel, like where it is today or wherever, it just no, that doesn't make any sense logically. So in terms of like that, as far as like Hebrew Israelites, I've always noticed how they're depicted in the media tend to be, they're not welcome anywhere. So I know that's a bit of a sidestep, but I wanted to kind of understand.
No, it's an elephant in the room. It's something that needs to be like put out there and talked about because a lot of times the depiction is mostly when they're having the conversation of very derogatory back and forth rhetoric. Myself and Fuzz, we're under the understanding, and what I teach specifically is that about the wheats and the tares. If people don't understand what that means, is wheats and tares, you can't tell the difference between them until you pluck them. And so the Messiah says in the end, he'll come and divide the wheats from the tares. He'll decide who's who. And so though you might believe, like, don't get me wrong, we do believe for the most part a certain group of people are Israelites or Edomites or Moabites, whatever, but it does say that they're going to be dispersed throughout all the lands. So they're always going to be a remnant within every group of people. So even in the Ashkenazi Jewish community, which we don't take to be connected to the biblical ancient Israelites, there are still some who actually are Israelites within that group of people. They just would be that remnant. So it would be a smaller group, but there's going to be some who are Ashkenazi Jews who are Israelites.
Do you find that freaks people out when you talk, if you talk about that? Like, I mean, specifically, I don't know if you've talked about it like with other people of Ashkenazi Jewish, like how do you, like, what's the response? I just, because of like what I see, it's usually like, oh my God, it's like, calm down. It's
most of the ones I've actually run across have been kind of more in the lens of being atheists. So they're like, yeah, they take it with a grain of salt and kind of ignore it. I don't know for Chris and Fuzz.
Go, Chris.
Yeah, and this isn't to like put you on the spot or anything. I'm just actually curious.
What's up to everybody in the chat? Variant, Elf, Pluto, everybody, I see you out there. My experience has been, again, I'm from New York, right? So there was a lot of Hebrew Israelites, especially like where I came up. They would always be on the corner. They're kind of intimidating, right? They're not like, hey, they're not like have some tea and crumpets, right?
No. White devil over there. It's like, yeah, I'm here.
You said it now.
Sorry, no, there's one because there's these guys in Chicago. I'm serious for like 8 years.
They're in Chicago too.
Yeah, we've talked before. It's just funny. Sorry, go ahead. But yeah.
Yeah, no, you're good. That's more or less how a lot of them sound. I mean, obviously they're doing what they feel like they should be doing, but clearly they're super aggressive with it, right? And because New York is a melting pot, you're on the train next to somebody who's Ashkenazi, you're friends with, you work for, the opinions vary. Some of them don't want to bring it up, right? Others, if they're more atheist, they don't really care, right? One way or the other. Some think we're in a simulation altogether. And then you have the few of them I've come across who actually know that and believe that they are probably not Hebrew Israelites.
No, yeah. personally.
Well,
No, that's I don't know. Just me. It's like no.
you have the slow-mo Sands out there, which if people aren't familiar with him, he wrote the book called the 13th Tribe, in which he was saying that it's a complete fabrication to say that they are actually connected to the bloodline Israelites. And then you have a couple of other ones too. Sure, Fuzz?
Wasn't Shlomo Sands actually the writer of the invention of the Jewish people?
Oh, that's right. He's the invention of the Jewish people. I'm getting
Mm.
the 13th Tribe. I'm getting that mixed up. It's a different writer.
Okay, I feel like I ran into that actually. Maybe last night, the invention of the Jewish people, and then I went on that rabbit hole.
Did you read? Have you read anything about Dr. Ilan Ikaik?
I have not.
He is a geneticist out of, I think, either Johns Hopkins University. I think it's Johns Hopkins. And he actually did research and said that a lot of the Ashkenazi Jewish population, a good chunk, actually have genetic ties to Khazarians.
Right. We've talked about that. And kind of what I have been reading, it kind of checks out. Not to say that's a great thing, but I mean that's what I'm coming at this actually because I love history. So if it checks out, I'm not gonna just say nope. I'm of the belief at this point, I don't think that on an individual level, I don't think people should be there's a difference between discussing it and talking about it and not just kind of ignoring it, that was back then. There's that, or I don't know. I think people are really scared to go there because they assume they have to, I don't know, suffer or do something. And that's where my questions are as far as the prophecies. Is that what that leads to? And you say you can't judge people necessarily with the Bible on an individual level. It's more of on a larger scale. But I don't know. Like I said, I'm the person that's gonna want to walk into the building when it's on fire. So you're not gonna. It's okay because.
Well, I mean, you think of the Israelites. Daniel, when he's writing most of his major prophecies, Daniel is in captivity at that time. I mean, a lot of the prophets were literally in captivity, and so they were being righteous and still judged with their nation. Now, they might have not got as bad of a lot as some of their fellow countrymen. They might have been propped up in higher society, but they were still in the form of servitude. Whereas some were getting it really, really rough. I think that in the end, it kind of be the same kind of thing. Also, it makes a difference in if you're one of those people who are resistant to the end and you don't want to listen, you don't want to ignore it, and you don't want to try to rectify things at all, you will be judged for that behavior.
Okay. And that's probably the line that gets people oh my
God. That's what gets people in trouble.
That's the one, because it's well, and I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and be your faith, everyone here, you have what you believe it, who am I to say, well, that's not right. I am at least I always will, hold on to that concept of free will, and we could talk about that later. But at the end of the day, again, it's the idea of, rectifying things, or at the very least, no, acknowledging isn't enough for me. It's rectifying starts with actually talking through it. So that's kind of where I've just found it interest in it. It's not to be oh, I'm it wasn't me. It's not like that. I can't stand when people do that shit. It's no, let's just, really talk about it. Because I find it interesting because I love history. Even if it doesn't look so kindly on. That's
a good one. The Ashkenazi Jews are genetically European from Live Science. That's an actual article. I can't remember if it was an article or what it is, but that goes into a study of DNA studies. I'm trying to remember. There was another geneticist also, which I believe she worked out of Haaretz, and which, if you guys aren't familiar with Haaretz, it's a somewhat left-wing Israeli newspaper.
Yeah,
that's honestly where I read the one about the skin cancer. And by left wing, it's still, if we're talking that spectrum, right? They're still right as it gets.
Yeah, actually.
I mean, well, you do have some which are a little bit more left-leaning within the newspaper, and then you got some who are what I call polite Zionists.
Oh, polite side. Okay, nice polite.
Yeah, it's like, I want to not give up anything, even if I find out that, like, they've literally asked. I don't know if you've seen that. I guess it's asked question thing. I can't remember. I'll have to find it. But this guy, he literally goes throughout Israel and he asks different questions. And he's like, if you found out that you were not tied to the land, would you be willing to get up and leave? And like 95% of the people are like, nope, I'm staying anyway.
And my question then back to them would be like, okay, I'm not in, because I'm like, yeah, sure, your life's here now, but would you be willing to, I don't know, let others who, not even let, like, accept that others who are here, I'm talking about Palestinians specifically, like, are you willing to, actually, no, again, not willing, like, this is what's going to happen? And like, I'm just curious what they would say, like, oh, well, those people can't live among us. That's where it just gets really weird to me. And it just actually never made sense to me, ever. So that's why I would say there's one uncle of mine who, I should send this to him. I probably will, just to fuck with him. We don't talk. Well, he's always, long, I won't drag on too long, but he's, how do they separate this? Conservative Judaism. So like, I don't know. They kicked me out when I was like 14 because I mixed up like the kosher plates, and I was like, fuck this. They don't talk to. Yeah, but I mean, no, this is a man who said, like, when I was little, why he and my father don't speak, that he's like, Palestine should be blown off the face of the earth, which I remember even back then saying, that doesn't make sense. So do you see what I'm saying? Like, from when I was young, I would just hear these things. I'm like, what? Why are people killing each other over this? I thought it was supposed to be, a good thing, religion and all of that. So again, I'm sure.
And something, a comment I know he said, I'm gonna bring this up to share so you can show it, and then Fuzz, you can go into it. But it's something that I want to show because this is a pet peeve of mine. Whenever people use the term anti-Semitic, I like to show and break this up. But go ahead, Fuzz.
So what I was going to mention is that the same way we can use the Torah with Deuteronomy 28 to prove who the Israelites are by the characteristics of that prophecy that's in that chapter, Leviticus 26 and what the Heavenly Father speaks of as blessings to whoever is obedient for following the law, statutes, and commandments can prove who the current occupants of people in Israel are not. Okay. So, for example, here's just this is, before I read the scripture, you need to keep in mind that the only possible reason that they are able to do this right now is with billions of dollars of weapons and military and intelligence aid sent from America, and initially how the state of Israel was set up by the British via the Balfour Declaration and all that jazz. But here, this is Leviticus 26 and Leviticus chapter 26, verse 6 through 7. And I will give peace in the land, and ye shall lie down, and none shall make you afraid. And I will rid evil beasts out of the land. Neither shall the sword go through your land. And ye shall chase your enemies, and they shall fall before you by the sword. So that, like, what's going on, the occupation that's going on right now for the Israelis on the Palestinians doesn't look a lot like divine intervention.
Well, yeah, according to that scripture, that means that there would be basically no violence and you would live peacefully. Especially within the land. Now, maybe outside the land, you might have some issues, but within the land, you shouldn't have any problems at all. You shouldn't be scared and bomb sirens or, like recently we've seen these events where people are walking up and they're shooting Israelis. None of that stuff should be happening, according to Leviticus, that scripture you just read.
Okay. Yeah, they know the checkpoints and all kinds of shit there.
Yeah, none of that stuff should be happening.
No.
Well, clearly, and just to know how they live, how they move, right? Let's just even talk about the government. They, as I always say, the best thing they did for themselves was to tie their religion to their entire identity, because you cannot criticize one thing without the automatic anti-Semite response, right? You can't say, I don't like your politics, I don't like your governance, I don't like anything about you that has nothing to do with what religion you claim to follow. But even that is something to be spoken on, right? Because as a country, what they stand for, any principles, it goes everything that's against, it goes against everything their book stands for, right?
Right.
If you look in the Torah, some of the things they say, the values they have there, they don't live by it at all.
No.
In fact, they make a mockery out of it, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, and there's probably more atheists in Israel than there are people of faith. That's another thing that wouldn't be, making much sense.
If you're,
yeah. Go ahead.
Marcus, I was just gonna say, if you're living in that situation, you almost have to be an atheist, right? To make it make sense in your own damn head. Because you can't say that you believe in a higher power and you go by this sacred text and you're supposed to live in this particular way and you're doing what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
You're part of it. You're funding it. You look the other way.
Yeah.
There's a disconnect. So it's easiest just to say, claim ignorance. Nah, there's nobody anywhere. It's just life. And that's how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, makes sense.
Makes sense to me.
I mean, I have a scripture that I would add to dovetail onto what Fuzz was talking about. This would be Luke 20:21 and 24. It says, or Fuzz, did you want to read it? Luke 21 and 24.
That's why I'm here.
This ties on perfectly to it, because this is another thing, this prophecy, I'll just let him read it and then I'll explain.
This is the book of Luke, chapter 21 and verse 24. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive unto all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
So what that's telling you is, whoever is there, that means Israel has been taken out of the land and dispersed all over the world. Whoever is there, up until the time of the Messiah, is a Gentile.
Mm-hmm.
So it's saying anybody that's there right now is not the actual people.
Right.
And that even goes into not only Ashkenazi, but that goes into Falasha Jews and all of those other people too.
Right. That's what I was kind of, I think I actually read that particular part last
Ali,
time.
let me ask you, do you have do you see a lot of Hasidic Jews there in Chicago?
No, actually, no, I don't. I know you do in New York, but not in Chicago that I know of. There's a couple of suburbs that are very, very, very like Orthodox, but no, not Hasidic. No, actually.
So not even out in Schaumburg?
There's probably a few in Schaumburg, actually. Yeah, I brought up. I hate Schaumburg so much.
You got to remember, I know Chicago too a little bit.
Yes, you do. Yeah, you guys both. Yeah, no, there's Skokie, Schaumburg, that whole North Shore. They're up there, but no, not Hasidic Jews that I've really seen, to be honest with you. But I know that there's an enclave in New York. Oh, what's this? Did you want me to add that? Yeah, I should probably add this to the stream for you. Is this
Yes.
what you wanted to do?
Yes, I wanted to explain this out.
Oh, yeah.
Like, remember what I said before, the children of Sheth?
Is there a next one?
That's probably Chris.
Okay.
But the children of Sheth, all of everybody going down all the way through after the flood would all be children of Sheth, because there were different nations of people before that. Noah, after the flood, had his 3 sons, Ham, Japheth, and Shem. That means that everybody in the world descend from one of those 3 lineages. Now, what you'll see as you go down through this, which I gotta try to see if I can make this bigger in any way. Hold on a second. Can I zoom in? I do not know how to do anything.
Neither do I, especially like in the moment.
Control and scroll up. Hold control and scroll up.
Hold control and scroll up. Oh.
It's a gypsy.
I don't know. I suck.
Sorry.
Anyway, I don't even know how I just changed this.
Oh,
Wait a minute. Well, never mind. I just jumped all the way out of that.
that's okay.
But anyway, I guess you can close that out.
Okay.
What I was trying to show is that all of those people that were within that table are all Shemites.
Okay.
All of them. So when they talk about, the Palestinians, they're anti-Semitic. Most of the Palestinians are actually not the original Palestinians either. Original Palestinians would be Hamites.
Okay.
So most of these Palestinians moved into the Levant also, which most of them are actually Ishmaelites or Arabs. Most Arabs fall up under Ishmael, Aram, Elamites, all these different groups, but they're all Shemitic groups. They're all descendants of Shem.
It doesn't make sense when it just doesn't make sense. I know I keep repeating that. That's kind of where I'm at. It doesn't make sense. And like all these little things throughout my life.
When you test a rabbi, when you say that to a rabbi, they're like, yeah, I know, but we're talking about, European Jews, and that they'll clarify then. And I'm like, so that's not correct, but you keep using it anyway.
That's the problem.
Well, they know most people don't know that.
Yeah.
So they use it and they're being deceptive intentionally.
And it further perpetuates the things that they then tend to say as far as like, there's so much oppression, Jews, hatred, etc., of European Jewish, and I'm not saying that, like, just to throw this out there, like the Holocaust and all that. I'm not saying that didn't happen. I know we've had conversations about this. What I'm saying is that, like you mentioned this to me, the actual meaning of that word, Holocaust. So it's kind of like the sacrifice. Yeah. So when you think about it in a larger scale, because so many narratives fall apart when you actually look into, of course, World War II, the creation of Israel, where that was going to be, because, they were picking where the state of Israel was going to be, which could have been in Eritrea or Ghana. I know there's one other place, I think.
Uganda.
Okay. And so it's kind of like, even just that, it shatters the narrative. So then you go even farther back.
Because it's not like any of those places are like right next to each other.
Correct. Not at all.
It's like, okay, one is right here. It's like Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, right? It's not like that at all.
It's not just one little country. Okay, gosh, there's some people that like it's a small place. Like, no, it's not. It's I'm not even trying to sound, like holier than thou, no pun intended. But it's just, like, again, history. Like, it's so interesting how the Bible and the parallels with history, and then seeing how it's perpetuated today, and how one group of people, and I'm not trying to make anyone uncomfortable, but just seems to be like that is a prioritized level of suffering, and the others are just like, well, that was so long ago, it didn't matter. It's like, no, it all kind of matters, all of it. So anyway,
I was going to say it really does matter, because you can see just how they try to pervert it as well, right? That's the other thing. Since if it's like, Marcus was here today, if I say that right, Marcus was here in the state of Florida today, he could easily prove that he wasn't, right? He can show he doesn't have a plane ticket, whatever. He can easily prove that he wasn't.
Right.
When it comes to scripture, knowledge of it, understanding manipulation of the human mind, etc., they take what a lot of people believe in the book and they just morph it into nasty shit. And it's real disgusting when you even just look at COVID, how they did it, right? They had everybody thinking this was the end times and this is the mark of the beast. And, clearly it's not. They're playing with you. But how many people did you know who were somewhat religious using those terms over the last, year and a half, 2 years?
Oh, yeah. It's the mark of the beast. And it's like, okay, they manipulate people's emotions, fears, beliefs, and turn them and use them for their, own gain. Again, it's not anything necessarily new. I'm just, just keeps happening over and over and over again. It might look different for different people, but it's this pattern. You can't really deny it.
Well, that goes into like a little dirty secret about Zionism. A lot of people don't realize most Zionists aren't Jewish.
Nope.
That's the dirty secret. The only thing is these two sets of Zionists have different end games. They work together in the meantime, but one really just wants the other one to be destroyed so they can inherit their blessing, because that's their perverse thinking. That's what Christians believe. It's basically like replacement theology. It's like, if you guys don't come on to what we believe, you guys are all going to be destroyed.
Yeah.
And so only a portion of you guys are going to stick around and come on to join with us. And the rest of you guys are going to be destroyed. The 2/3 are going to be destroyed. But that's a faulty understanding also.
And it's like the idea, it's kind of like Seb's kind of brought this to my attention. There's a name, like a double bind. Like, you don't really have a good option. It's like, well, you do this or you're fucked either way. So I don't know if that exactly makes sense, but just the idea of like, I've noticed with Christians, like, they're very, not all, I'm generalizing, but in terms of like this particular topic and how like these Zionist Christians, because I mean, I'm originally from Northwest Indiana. There's some real, there's Israeli flags flying in some part, and it's
Mike Pence country.
Sense. Oh God, yeah. I mean, hey, you know what? Real quick, like, now I gotta clarify. Northwest Indiana is not the same as the rest of Indiana. We go by, Chicago things, but yeah, Indiana, yeah.
It's a difference between Indianapolis and that part.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Look, Fuzz, where he's located, there's a lot of them down there.
Yeah.
Not many that I've seen. Well, I don't go out that often, so my views don't really count. But you'd have to tell me where they would be likely to spring up.
Corn country. Hi, Seth.
Yes, definitely corn country.
Corn country. Hello, Doom. Shit, a family obligation. Glad you're tuning in. But yeah. So anyway, I kind of got off of.
I was gonna tell you. There was some videos which I actually saw that, like, when I was hearing some of the stuff which I come to believe, which I stand by now. I was like, let me test this stuff out, because there's no way that most people don't know this or that. If this is true, then more people have to know this, or this has to be more verifiable. And so when I try to look at it with an open mindset versus with all the Christianity that had been put into my brain growing up, because one of my uncles was a pastor. I used to be able to literally talk to pastors and theologians all the time. And I would ask them many questions that I never could get answers on. And then, so I lean more on my knowledge of ancient history and all these other things. And then when I actually start having a conversation with a Hebrew Israelite who was very knowledgeable, all of these things which I knew all start connecting and started making sense all of a sudden. And then he was able to back it up with showing me art, archaeology, things like that. I was like, okay, all right. So there's some smoke behind what this guy's saying. Here's this one. Let me pull it up. It's a short video, but it is a guy in Israel, and just a normal Israeli guy. So you guys can either take it for a grain of salt or not, or whatever. But
yeah, we're open here. Just go ahead and let's see.
Let me back it up.
Okay.
And let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, go right ahead.
All right.
Let me just reveal some things. First of all, is that the Jews who were brought in Israel, most of them are white. Not most of them, almost all of them are white, including me. I was brought in Israel from a country which is called Bulgaria. It's a European country. And I can tell you that in every European country, there are Jews, and there is so-called organization, Jewish Agency, which is trying to take those Jews to Israel. If you track this organization, you can find out that this is not an Israeli organization. This is an American organization. Jewish Agency is an American organization which has the exclusive right to decide who is Jewish and who is not on this planet, and who to be taken to Israel and who's not. Now, if you if you do research, you will find out that in Africa, in Black Africa, they're looking for Jews only in Ethiopia. They bring Jews only from Ethiopia. And I can tell you by knowing a lot of people, Ethiopian Jews here in Israel, that they're treated very badly, very badly. And many of them commit suicide because they cannot take it. So they come from some place, Ethiopia, don't have much there, but they live decent life. And when they come here and try to be humiliated and so on, some of them cannot even take it. Now, what I'm trying to say is that why from each white country this Jewish agency is trying to bring Jews, and when it's about Black Africa, they're going to Ethiopia, and this is where they stop. The only one place. Now, because of the same thing, they're trying to do the white supremacy here. They try to bring white guys here and to take the supremacy over Arabs, which are the local citizens, and over blacks, which are so far they're only the Ethiopian Jews. Now, what I'm trying also to say is that another question is why America needs Israel. In Israel there is no oil like in other Middle Eastern countries. There's nothing they can be attracted to. But why do they do all these things? Why do they invest money, bring white people and so on? When they build their system of white supremacy, just like in America, they build in Israel. Why? And I can tell you why. Because the true Jews, according to the Bible, you can check it in the Bible, you can read Job 30 and some other places. They have never been white. They have been people of color. And they have not stopped in Ethiopia. They were in Ethiopia, Sudan, and they have settled in West Africa. From West Africa, they have been taken as slaves to America. Brothers and sisters, blacks of America, it's you. You are the true Hebrews. You are the true Hebrews from the Bible. America gonna do everything, gonna invest as much money as it has, gonna fight as much wars as they can, gonna invite as much weapons as they can just to hide this away from you. Gonna take Israel, gonna bring white people here and to tell you these are the Jews, gonna kill you, gonna kill Arabs, gonna mistreat white people like this guy just to tell you this lie. That you are nobody and we are the Jews with all the history and so on. It has been deleted, your history. You don't know who you are. Don't forget about it. This is why America has been taking your history away, never to find out that it's all about you. I'm telling you this, please. I don't ask you to come to Israel and to start a revolution. I'm just asking you to start thinking this way, to believe me a little bit, because I'm living in Israel and I'm part of this injustice. I really believe that people like me and you, we can bring the justice back. Thank you.
Makes sense to me.
Oh, the Spirit is asking for several precepts to be read out right now.
Go for it. Please.
All right. Okay. So this is...
I guess I was muted. I guess you didn't hear that.
Mm-mm.
What were you grabbing? Job 30:30?
No, Psalms 83.
Well, do Job 30:30 first.
All right. And
because that's the one he directly referenced.
I don't know if you also, would it be too soon to bust out Revelations 3 and 9?
Yeah, a little too early for that.
Okay.
But I would say get ready. Goodness, I'm drawing a blank on it. Goodness, it'll come back to me in a moment. Or let me flip through my Bible and see if it'll come back.
Sebs isn't Jewish. Sorry, I just say.
What was it, Job 30 and 30?
Yeah, isn't she Eritrean? It's not quite Ethiopian. I know what he's trying to say. But and how they've decided that the Ethiopians are Jewish because they say that they have the same DNA as Ashkenazis. So if Ashkenazis aren't correctly, they're saying if he's saying that his people Ashkenazis aren't, then that would mean that the Limbas aren't also. What he said is Sudan, and he said across into West Africa, which there's a book, Babylon to Timbuktu. If you go and check that out, it goes into that history about literally millions of Jews fleeing across to West Africa.
I think I came across something around it was a big rabbit hole.
So Marcus, that was Job 30 and 30?
Yeah.
Okay. This is the book of Job, chapter 30 and verse 30. My skin is black upon me, and my bones are burned with heat.
I mean, and then what was it? Acts was it Acts 13 and 1? Is it Acts 13 and 1 or 17 and 1?
Before that one, can I bring out Psalms 83, just like on the to tack on the point for like involving America, like having
do Acts 13 and 1 first, though, because we'll get the two color scriptures out of the way and then we'll go on to that.
That was Acts 13 and
13 and 1.
Okay.
I think it's 13 and 1. Let me see. Might have to scroll down a little bit. Yeah, it's Acts 13 and 1.
This is the book of Acts, chapter 13 and verse 1. Now there were in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas and Simeon, that was called Niger.
Say correctly. You know it's not. It's Greek. There is no soft G in Greek.
Now there were in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas and Simeon, that was called Niger.
It says nigger. So I'll just put it out there and say it. In fact, if you need me to confirm that that's what it says, let me see. One of the study tools that I use and advocate often, which is not 1,000% correct, but it is correct on most things, especially pronunciations. Let's find the word. And let me put it up there so I can share it on my screen.
Okay.
That way, it'll say it for us.
You're like putting him on the spot. Like, say it.
I'm like, just say it. All right. Let's see where you're at. All right, let me know when you're ready.
Yep.
Okay.
Strong's G 3526. Niger.
Now, is that not clear enough what it's saying there?
Pretty clear. Seems pretty clear to me. I do this thing where I smile at really inappropriate times.
Well, in the other translations, it says known as the black man.
I mean,
they just remixed it and used it in what was that? Don't Be a Menace in South Central. While drinking your juice in the hood. Remember, he opened up the door. It was like, nigga.
And I mean, that's what it. Well, you got to remember, in that term comes from the Greek. In Greek, there is no soft G. So that country isn't really Niger. The country is nigger because it comes from the Greek. I mean, I hate to be blunt with it, but that's exactly what it was. I mean, if people want to know what Nigeria means, Nigeria means land of black.
Yeah.
I mean, Ethiopia, the name Ethiopia actually comes from the Greek, which means burnt face.
I mean, that's why it's a lot of this is like just the words alone and like where they come from and who.
Yeah.
It's like that's I think where I struggle. I'm like, I don't know how people can deny some of this stuff when it's the language is everything. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but
well, that's why I got like really a little ticked off with the whole Whoopi Goldberg thing when they were like, it was no racial construct during the days of the Holocaust, and I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
What?
Yeah, I'm like, there's racism ain't no brand new thing that just popped around in the 1940s or came around later on in the 60s or 70s or something. I'm like, you got to remember, slavery and all that was going on, race-based slavery, civil war, all that stuff happened well before the Holocaust.
Mm-hmm.
And so for them to say, when she said it was white on white, they just didn't like the fact that she was calling Jewish people white. Now, be damned whatever the Nazis thought of them as. The Nazis could have thought that they were Martians. It doesn't matter.
Right.
They're still Caucasians. You're still the same, you know, of the same stock to a degree. It's just like, okay, so if we're going to say, well, Jewish are different people. So is everybody in Europe no longer white people or Caucasians? So I guess Russians are different people now. I guess the French are different people now. The Swedes are, everybody in Europe now, nobody's Caucasian or nobody's white.
Yeah, no, people know.
That's the logic you have to go to, because it's fun for them to say black on black violence. But when it comes to white on white, they can't acknowledge the fact of there's been plenty of white on white violence all throughout Europe.
Yeah. I mean, like, look at the history of Europe. Look at the way just the countries themselves are divided.
Especially the UK.
Yeah, to say the least. So it's silly to me. And then, like, you have some people, I think I'm generalizing here, but a lot of conservatives, that black on black crime in the inner cities, and they just like, they're fine, but no mention of any, like, it's so silly because completely ignores, just reality. Again, the truth is the truth. I mean, different people have different perspectives, but the more perspectives I think you get when looking back, it just helps to piece things together. So we get caught up in these.
Yeah, I used to say, like, people will say all the time, crabs in the bucket. I'm like, well, who put the crabs in the bucket? Nobody ever talks about that part. Who put the crabs in the bucket for them to be pulling each other down in the first place? Who put the drugs in the communities? Who's the one that created redlining and forced all the poverty over there? Who's the one who didn't want to hire people? Who's the ones who first fired, last hired? Who's the one who did all of these different things and set up a whole different category to put a whole group of people beneath? Who did that? They didn't do it on their own.
I mean, look no further, and we can go into this more later, but like if, a city like Chicago, I mean, redlining, that's like the mayor, Daley #1, that was, he literally, the way it was split up was just so like his community, Bridgeport, didn't have to be into, next to the housing projects and whatnot. I mean, that's where, again, it's kind of like, just look outside, look around you. It's so fucking obvious. So who put all the crabs in the bucket?
Yep.
And nobody wants to talk about that. They will, and a little bit. Go ahead.
I'll say another thing. Look at the name of just more than just that. Look at the etymology of names of all the places which colonizers went. Puerto Rico, port of riches. That's what they thought of. It was a place where they got riches from.
Right.
Costa Rica, a place where they got riches from. Look at the Gold Coast, the Ivory Coast. The Emerald Coast. They only thought of these places for what their resources were. Yeah, Hispaniola also.
Yes, I mean, exactly. That's how they named them.
The land of Hispanics. Yeah.
That's what that's helped them navigate and get to where they needed to be, right?
Yeah, that was the land where the gold is. So we just remember that way.
Go to that place.
Yeah.
Where you find it.
The last time we came through here, we found mad gold, son. Like, let's go back that way.
Like, I think like Jamaica means something like big trees and water or something weird.
Basic ass descriptions. Like, people think it's like some crazy, meaning behind words. It's like, no, it's usually blame it on the Commonwealth. The colonizers, they're just like, nope, that's where that resource is, and that's where you're gonna go to get it. And so, forget whoever's there, take them with you, bring them back. Fuck it.
So speaking on, the Ashkenazi, right? We have to say there are a lot of penalties that come in speaking certain ways as it relates to that particular group, right? In some cases you can get disappeared, as in like you're no longer around.
Yeah.
Other ways, they'll just, if you want to talk about cancel culture, they really are that particular group has the ability to cancel you. We've seen it happen numerous times.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you do have to tread lightly when you bring this stuff up. Unfortunately, I mean, it would be nice if we all could, just keep it a buck and discuss not so much the average person, because then that's where the other part of it gets screwed up, right? In that we're talking about people who have power, control, influence, ownership. I'm not talking about the guy who's a dentist and did well for himself.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about the attorney who did well for himself, right? I'm talking about a much larger bird, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. That is a good thing to point out, because I'm over here just like, let's talk about. I mean, you could say whatever, but yeah, there are real consequences, and that could, again, that's kind of like, hey, maybe that's an answer to who's got a lot of power and control and influence, whether or not people like who identify as that want to like go there. I think that's actually why a lot of it isn't discussed, because people assume that, oh, they're talking about me or my family, my dad, my grandpa. No, it's
Oh, Chris, you got an echo.
Oh shit, my bad.
No, you're all good. I think it's an uncomfortable conversation for some people, and I do understand that. And I mean, every group, sure, you can say has, of course, issues. Like, people are people. This is a human being problem. But it's just, again, interesting as far as like how far they will go, I think. And I'm saying they, it's an elusive group, but just this idea will go to get people to just completely not talk about it at all, because they don't want to be labeled an anti-Semitic, even though that I know that's not the correct, actual term. But they call that as worse than anything else.